Welcome back to PC Builder. I'm Jason. There are huge GPU price cuts right now by both AMD and NVIDIA as they continue their price war in the GPU market. It is absolutely crazy both at the high end, the mid-range, and even at the budget level. We'll cover all the GPU news and we'll go through the best price to performance GPU at 1080p, 1440p, and 4K. Remember, if you get value out of this video, then give it a like. It makes a huge difference to the channel. And of course, subscribe, click that bell icon. That way you get notified when we release cool content. With that, let's jump into it. Before that, this video is sponsored by VIP SCD Key. Say goodbye to crazy expensive Windows 10 licenses and that terrible Activate Windows 10 watermark. Right now, use the links in the video description, head over to VIP SCD Key, and get a Windows 10 Home or Pro OEM license for a great price. Pick your product license, then use the PC Builder discount code PC25 for an additional 25% off. Go to the activation settings on your PC, put in the code, and boom, you have a fully licensed Windows 10 for a crazy low price, which can be upgraded for free to Windows 11. Use the links in the video description below. Let's jump into 2024 GPU prices in March. And let's start on the AMD side this month, because when last we left our AMD brethren here, I was saying that at the high end, it looked like their GPUs needed to have some price cuts to compete with some of the new RTX 4000 series supercards launched by NVIDIA. AMD did not disappoint here. Look at the RX 7900 XTX, down to $909 after it was $979 in January. That's a $70 price cut. It's basically back to Black Friday and holiday shopping series pricing out there. And if we look, it's not just a couple of units like the ASRock Phantom Gaming, which you would typically expect. Usually those are the lower price ones for $909 after you've taken the promo code. But if we actually jump up, look at that, the MSI, and you don't even need a promo code for this. For the MSI, pretty high-end unit here for $909. Now, it's possible that these will continue to sink. The low price actually was $889. I believe that was back in July during Amazon Prime Day. So we know they have a little bit more room to go, but we're only talking about another $20. But it will be interesting to see. 7900 XT basically goes to $699. $699. Maybe that's even what they should have launched that card at instead of $899, that really ridiculous MSRP out there. And at that price, I got to tell you, again, when we said that they needed some price cuts, they've done it. Now, I wasn't sure if this price cut was really going to last when I first saw it, but it's been a couple weeks now, and I've actually seen not just the Sapphire Pulse, which is the one that's been $699 reliably, and it's a pretty good card too. I have seen some of the other models briefly drop down to $699 as well in order to compete with it. So it's possible we're seeing kind of a new price point for this GPU. Then we got the new kid on the block, the RX 7900 GRE 16 gigabyte GPU, which is MSRPing at $549. I'm filming this just like a day or two after the launch. And if we check in, yeah, this thing did not sell out, despite the fact I was told by a couple of the board partners that supply was so limited. We'll talk a little bit more about the price and performance, including some of the possible overclocking possibilities on this GPU later in the news section of the video. But at least right now, it doesn't look like it's really going anywhere in terms of sales. $549, you can get pretty much all the models. The ones that are quote unquote sold out or out of stock, although I do believe the Sapphire Pulse is actually out of stock. The rest of these models, though, have just never come into stock. So it's not like you got to rush out and grab one of these things. And again, we'll talk about the differences between this, the 4070 Super, and the 7800 XT in just a moment. That leads us over to the RX 7800 XT, still at $499, but I will say with the GRE launching just $50 more, what we've seen is a number of those models that had been selling for like $520 and $530, whom they've all dropped down to $499. And I hope that this portends kind of future price cuts or at least price drift down even below $499. Although honestly, this is probably the best 1440p GPU kind of at the upper or mid-range out there right now that includes 16 gigs of VRAM. 6800 XT, there's really only one model out there, $459. It's a pretty good deal if you want a small discount off the 7800 XT and you don't really care about the AV1 encoding. Remember, everything's linked down in the video description so you can check that out. But probably last time we'll talk about that card is it is selling out, as did the 6950 XT and the 6800 non-XT, et cetera, et cetera. Under the 7700 XT, and AMD actually announced an MSRP adjustment for the 7700 XT, a little late AMD, by the way, but hey, better late than never. $419. Now, this kind of got obfuscated a little bit with the 7900 GRE launching. They did it in the same press announcement, so it didn't really get as much coverage as it probably warranted. That being said, it's only about, what, a $30 adjustment out there. But I think what's going to end up happening, because the card was already being sold for less than MSRP out there, as you can see, $429, is now the new MSRP, because of the back channel discounts that AMD will give. You'll start seeing some of these cards dip even further below that. I would love to see them closer to have a 3 in front of that price. But you can see right now the ASRock Challenger out there with the promo code down to $409, so below MSRP. So that's the direction this card really needs to head. Dropping down to the lower end of the lineup, RX 7600 XT, as I predicted, we're starting to see price cuts on that card already. $319 the Power Color Fighter one, $324 on the Asus Dual one. I suspect this card will continue to sink until it hits around $299. So we'll just have to sit here for a couple months until that happens. No real change on the rest of the lineup, although I don't expect the 6700 XT, unfortunately, 12GB card to be available much longer. Handful of units still available out there, still about $329, but the RX 6600 I think is going back down and drifting back down. It's being dragged by some of the lower end Intel GPUs, which we'll talk about in just a moment. $184 right now. That's the Power Color Fighter version. I will say, if you're interested in one of these cards, don't just buy it based on this. Make sure you check the promo codes, because like here's the Gigabyte one available for $189, only $5 more for the 3-fan model. So just kind of hunt and peck out there, but there still are plenty of 6600s out there for a really, really good price. Quick stop over Intel GPU prices, because I believe they are dragging down a number of lower end GPU prices out there. Then we'll jump into NVIDIA, but the A770 down $15 in March to $284, and it's the cool unit. I still think this is one of the coolest GPUs I have ever seen, and that's the Acer Predator Bifrost. It just looks super cool. Whether or not you care about Intel GPUs, I want more GPUs that look like that in the future. So 2 thumbs up, Acer. Jumping with the A750, $209, no real change from last month, but the A580, I believe this is why AMD is slashing prices on the RX 6600. Look at that, $164. Are you kidding me? $164 for the A580. Now listen, I still continue to caveat these GPUs. You better know how to troubleshoot something. These are not for just kind of the general audience out there, but they are rapidly improving, and fingers crossed that Intel really gets it together and gives us a good generation in Battlemage coming up and continues to cut prices on these GPUs. Let's jump over to NVIDIA GPU pricing in March 2024. And as we can see, some things are going a little bit bonkers right now. Absolutely nuts. We'll talk about the 4080 Super in just a moment. Let's start off with the 4090. Good news is, if you've been hunting and pecking for a 4090, they are coming back to something resembling previous reality before that whole China crisis sucked all the cards out there and away from other markets. So right now you can pick one up at Newegg for $1,849, but I will say, and it's good unit too, the Asus Tough one, but I will say, if you don't get that one, it goes up pretty quickly. Look at that, $2,000 plus pretty fast, with the 5090 potentially coming in about a year, maybe even less than a year if they do come by the end of this year. What are you really buying here? You can really ask that. We'll go over, should you buy now or should you wait a little bit later though. And then we got the RTX 4080 Super and frankly the RTX 4080. They're basically the same GPU in terms of performance. And look at those insane prices, $1,139 or $1,185 for the RTX 4080. What happened to $999 out there? Well, what happened is they sold out. Now, it's not clear how many models they had of these GPUs, because they're basically all out of stock at this point. But if you look at the prices, they've jacked them up from $999 to like $1,049 to $1,099, stuff like that. So will these cards come back at actual $999 MSRP or not? It's really tough to say right now, but I wouldn't hold my breath. However, I will say RTX 4070 Ti Super, $799. Remember, I do really like the 4070 Ti Super, despite everybody else dumping on that card. I think it's a good performer. It's got 16 gigs of VRAM. It kind of gave me everything that I would have wanted out of an 80 series class from NVIDIA, like a 3080, 4080 real series card. And honestly, given the fact it was only $100 more than the 3080 10GB card came out at $699, I would have been absolutely happy with this level of performance and this level of VRAM with it. That's why I'm actually recommending it. But right now, a lot of them are sold out closer to the MSRP. You might have to pay about $10, $15, $20 more. Not a lot of change for like the 4070 Super or the 4070, just small price cuts here and there. Honestly, not a huge change in most of the rest of NVIDIA's lineup. I will say cards that nobody should really care about, like the 4060 Ti 8GB down to $374. And I will say those RTX 3060s, there are a handful of models left, a real handful of bottles left at $299. If you've been wanting to get an NVIDIA GPU and you only have about $300 to spend, that is the GPU to pull the trigger on, my friend. I would not wait. Let's jump into the GPU news, and honestly, the only news item really out there, it's the launch of the RX 7900 GRE. We haven't had enough GPU launches, right? We need more GPU launches. Let's talk about what this card is. It's a cut down 7900 XT. Instead of 20 gigabytes of VRAM, it's got 16 gigabytes of VRAM, and the VRAM runs a little slower. The card runs a little slower, and the card has a couple fewer cores. It's been cut down from the 7900 XT. It is not the same silicon though as a 7800 XT, but the 7800 XT has faster memory, so sometimes it can really compete. But overall, what we're seeing is the partner models that were launched, not the AMD reference design, but the partner models are really pushing this card really, really hard, and they're clocking it up to almost the same speed as the 7900 XT. Obviously, it still has slower memory, it's got fewer cores out there, but that's leading it to about a 10% performance advantage over the 7800 XT right now. As you can see, about 120 FPS versus about 109 FPS out there. Honestly, what do I think of the card? Listen, for $549, it's basically about 10% more performance for about 10% more price. So that's fine. That's absolutely fine. And AMD did say that there's been a driver bug that has been preventing people from overclocking this card or clocking the memory up as well. So we'll have to wait and see in terms of its overclocking potential, given the fact it's actually cut down 7900 XT silicon out there. It could have a lot of potential, but we'll have to wait and see for somebody to actually do that. The other piece of GPU news is that NVIDIA is finally joining the ranks of everybody else and having an app that doesn't look like it's from 1997. So they're going to get rid of the terrible NVIDIA GPU control panel that's been around forever and is a absolute pain sometimes to set up. They're going to merge it with GeForce Experience, which required a login for some stupid reason, and it's basically going to become the NVIDIA app. Better late than never, absolutely better late than never. I will say some of the features out there look pretty cool on them. Let's quickly go through what they are. They are going to have an overlay out there, as well as they're going to have all the GPU controls in this control panel itself. You're going to be able to roll back drivers. 2 thumbs up there. They're ditching some of the older stuff in there in terms of being able to stream directly to Twitch and YouTube. Nobody does that. They use OBS for that. Or Streamlabs, which is basically a skinned version of OBS. I will say their overlay, NVIDIA, you got to work on this. I hope we can work on the transparency of that overlay box, because I don't just want a big black box on my games like that. They do have one really cool looking feature. I will say I like the RTX HDR. It basically takes, through AI kind of transposing or whatever you want to call it, they'll take the native SDR image and they'll make it look like HDR. So if we scroll this across, and I know this is a still image and we have to wait for testing and make sure that it actually works all the time and doesn't give you kind of crappy looking graphics. They are also going to add in overclocking features into this. Thank you. The only way to overclock NVIDIA GPUs has basically been to use MSI Afterburner, and that's been maintained by one human being out there. That's how thin the thread is in terms of us being able to overclock those GPUs or futz around with them at all. So hey, 2 thumbs up there. AMD has had all this functionality, well, obviously not the AI functionality, but in terms of the driver package for quite some time. It's very easy to use, and I'm hoping NVIDIA just decides to copy AMD here and come up to that same level and give some parity in terms of this feature set. Anyway, the beta is out right now. You can absolutely download it. I'll leave a link to it down in the video description if you want to check it out. Let's jump into the best GPU for gaming, March 2024. If you're not familiar with how we do this, we basically take all these GPUs out here with more than 8 gigs of VRAM that are still available either on the used or the new market. We put in the price, we put in the performance, and we come up with a price to performance, and we divide it up by 1080p, 1440p, and 4K. And remember, this spreadsheet is linked down in the video description. If you want to jump in there, you can actually create a copy of this yourself, put in your pricing, your availability there, and get the best GPU in your region. Let's jump into the best ultra budget GPU. Now, if you didn't watch our best GPU for gaming 2024 video, we completely rejiggered the way we do this. This is no longer compared to an RX 570. It's now compared to an RTX 3060 12GB. I'll leave a link to that video down in the video description. You can check it out. We also go through like what you should be looking for when you're buying a GPU. But let's take a look at the best GPU under $150 with more than 8 gigs VRAM. Obviously, we're primarily talking about used GPUs, but as we'll see in a moment, some of the new GPUs are getting down there as well. The RX 570 and 580 have finally climbed back up this list during the holiday shopping season. They pretty much sold out of the used market. They were gone. But I do recommend if you have $100 to spend, the GTX 1070 or 1070 Ti, 8GB cards, still 2 thumbs up on those. Unfortunately, the 5700 XT that had been such a good value is really falling down this list right now. But there are some other GPUs that are brand new if you have just a little bit more to spend. Let's jump into our brand new category, the best new GPU under $300. Now, I'm basically combining our previous 2 categories into one so we can get this done a little bit quicker. That is the best GPU under $200 and the best 1080p GPU that has at least 10 gigs or more of VRAM. We're not really going to look at a lot of used options here. I'm just not convinced that they're that good value, but there are some great new options out there. Let's start with the best GPU under $200. Honestly, it's the Intel Arc A580 or the RX 6600. If you want to spend a little bit more for like the 6600 XT or 6650 XT, it doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Honestly, it's about $50 more. You're not getting that much more performance. And if you are going to spend that level of pricing, I would jump up to something with more VRAM on it. But the A580 and RX 6600 look really, really good. In fact, I will say, just to kind of bolster Intel here, I have been playing a lot of Helldivers 2 lately. I've gotten super into that game. Now, honestly, I play with an RX 7900 XT. I'm playing at 4K, 144 hertz out there, but I have seen folks playing on the Intel Arc A770, the A750, and the A580, and not a lot of overall driver problems to report for that game. And it looks like it's running pretty well out there. So 2 thumbs up there for Intel. Of course, if you're looking for something for no compromises, 1080p, then obviously we want at least 10 or 12 gigs of VRAM. And the Intel Arc A770 and the RTX 3060 12GB, I think are really good options, either one. The Intel Arc A770, slightly more performance, obviously more VRAM, $284, very, very attractive. The RTX 3060 12GB continues to be, to me, the one you're going to select if you want a pretty fast card. Although, if you have a little bit more than $300 to spend, as we'll see in just a moment, and you want 1440p, there is a better choice. Jumping over the best 1440p GPU. So this is where the GPU score is 100 or greater. So an RTX 3060 12GB, performance level or greater, which is basically 60 FPS across a wide range of titles at ultra settings, and 12 gigs of VRAM or more. And I'm doing a top 15 here, a top 15, just to kind of show you where all the cards rank. Starting off, there's a lot of really good used values if you're open to buying one. The RX 6800, 6900 XT, RTX 3080 12GB. If you want an NVIDIA GPU, that's a pretty good one. Although I will say, if you look at the price of those cards, it's kind of hard to justify. And the price to performance, not that much better on some of them than some of the brand new cards that come with this thing called a warranty. One of those cards out there that's really good right now, the 6800 XT, if you can pick that up brand new, $459, great price. I was shocked, I'll be honest, by the RX 7700 XT. Who knew that shaving, $40 off the price of that thing basically would put it in a much better position, especially given that it has a higher performance level, performs very similarly to the RX 6800 non-XT out there. The only misgiving I have about that GPU continues to be 12 gigs of VRAM, although honestly, at around $400, I can definitely overlook that. I would love to see that GPU be a little cheaper, but obviously it's pretty good value right now. 7800 XT, 2 thumbs up if you have about $500 to spend, but honestly, if you can still find a 6700 or 6750 XT 12GB card for right around $300, those are my go-tos. I will say I'm shocked to see the RX 7600 XT continue to fall on this list, even though the price of it has come down $10. Look at that, it's quite far down there. And it's really the only option that I can recommend besides the 3060 12GB, which doesn't even make the list. It's off the list at the bottom there. So I think AMD and NVIDIA have some work to do around that $300 price point. Jumping over the best 240Hz 1440p GPU. So this is where you can obviously get that level of performance in those competitive shooter titles and other kind of competitive games out there. Yeah, we still have a lot of those really good used values out there, including the 3080, 6950 XE. But honestly, for the price that you're paying used for those, I really think new cards kind of start trumping everything right now. RX 6800 XT, 7800 XT, and the 7900 GRE with the same exact price to performance as the 7800 XT, just basically 10% more performance for 10% more money. That's fine. If you're targeting rasterized performance, you don't really care that much about ray tracing, which I kind of feel is most people in this category here. These are the ones to look at. On the NVIDIA side, things do get a little rough basically. The 4070 Super, great value. Obviously buy that over the 3080 Ti used because the 3080 Ti cost a little bit less, sure, but the 4070 Super is a brand new card with a warranty and it's got the same amount of VRAM, same amount of performance. The 4070, I really would love to see that thing come down down into the 400s. I don't really think it's appropriately priced at $500 or above, but I'd love to see it come down. I think it becomes more viable there. And the 7900 XT, I will say that continued AMD price cuts on this GPU have improved its performance in terms of its price to performance. If you're looking for much higher overall performance, because it is the highest performance card on this current list. Now, this is just a top 10. If you want me to do top 15 or whatever on this, just leave a comment down there. I can certainly do that next time. I don't want to throw too much data at you at the same time, but I do like the 7900 XT here. If you want even more performance, it remains one of my top picks for like max performance, 240 hertz, 1440p. Finishing out with the best 4K GPU, March 2024, or obviously just insanely high 1440p GPU. But the reason I mentioned 4K is because at 4K, settings like DLSS start to matter in ways they don't matter really at 1440p or 1080p. And there is a slight advantage that NVIDIA holds in DLSS. There's also, better ray tracing. Ray tracing at 4K makes a lot more sense to me as long as you have a card that can actually do it. And for all those reasons, if those are features that you're super interested in, remember to factor that into the price to performance, because that's a rasterized price to performance. All that caveat aside, if you're looking for like a 60 to 70 FPS experience, the 7900 GRE I think is a really, really good option out there. But I have been playing Helldivers 2 on an RX 7900 XT, and it has been phenomenal, and I absolutely love that game. This is probably the most excited I've been about a game in quite some time. Since like Overwatch came out like in 2016. I have absolutely loved the experience on the 7900 XT, and at 4K, 144 hertz, it's been a great GPU out there. I will say the 4070 Ti Super remains my value if you're looking for DLSS and if you're looking for ray tracing. To me, that is the real 4080 card out there, despite whatever NVIDIA wants to call these names, because it's only $100 more than the 3080 was when it came out at release. And it has that more, significant uplift to it. It's got 16 gigs of VRAM, which is super important. So if you're looking for an NVIDIA option, especially if you're into ray tracing, I really, really like that card. Once we go there, the huge price cut on the 7900 XTX, look at that. It's made a big difference. The XTX, better value right now than the 4070 Ti Super, which kind of blows me away. For NVIDIA, after that, it's really hard to justify the 4080 Super or the 4080. They're almost back to the $1,200 price point. We'll have to see if that's just a temporary shortage of cards or if maybe that was the plan all along. Who knows? Only time will tell. I think if you're going to spend $1,200, just go full Monty and get an RTX 4090, because that is the king of GPUs. It's the undisputed king of GPUs. Though I will say that title's probably only going to last for another 8 or 9 months here, or maybe a year until we get the RTX 5090, which we are expecting, again, either at the end of this year or the beginning of next year. Let's play everyone's favorite game. Should you buy now or should you wait? Well, honestly, GPU prices are massively getting cut right now, both the low end and the high end. And we're seeing introduction of some new GPUs that probably like the GRE, the 4070 Super, that are kind of mixing things up in the mid-range as well. The 4070 Ti Super, I think. Look at the 7900 XT price cut. That would not have happened had NVIDIA not launched the 4070 Ti Super. There's a big GPU price war going on right now between AMD and NVIDIA, and to some extent Intel as well. You look at those like budget GPUs, Intel's slugging it out too. And when that happens, consumers win. On the con side, right now, storage prices are going up, RAM prices are going up. If you're just waiting for a GPU, yeah, it's probably cool to continue to wait a little longer if you want to save a little bit more money. Obviously, factor your time involved too, like you're missing out on fun games right now. You don't have a GPU that you can use on them, so factor that in. But if you're looking to build an entire system, the GPU savings might be offset by other costs out there, so keep that in mind. But let's go through this. Honestly, at the budget level, there's really nothing more that's coming out that I'm anticipating between now and honestly the end of the year. And I really wouldn't wait for Battle Mage at this point. There's enough uncertainty around it. So I would go ahead and pick up one of those options right now. As you get more towards the mid-range, especially at 1440p, I'd snap up whatever 6750 or 6700 XT 12 gigabyte card I could if you have right around $300. I kind of like the 7700 XT all of a sudden around $400. It's got a lot more performance than the 4060 Ti 16 gigabytes. 12 gigs is probably going to be fine-ish in that class of GPUs, but I could certainly see looking to spend a little bit more money and just jump up to the 7800 XT, 16 gigabytes, and not have to worry about that. And then we've got at the higher end, we've got all the super cards in there, mixing it up with like the 7900 XT and XTX. And I think that's been really, really super good for high-end buyers. And at the same time, the 4090s are coming back after completely being liquidated during this whole US-China, import ban on AI technology. It looks like 4090s are coming back on the menu, and that's going to relieve some price pressure, hopefully downstream as well. Remember, everything is linked down in the video description, so check out those links for current pricing and availability in your region. And if you got value out of this video, give it a like. It really does make a huge difference to the channel. I can't even tell you enough. So definitely like it, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. And if you're looking for the best CPU and GPU combo in 2024, then check out this video right here. We go through everything that you need to know to buy an amazing CPU and GPU combo for every budget. And we'll catch you on the next one.